So picture a muddy pitch. 30 massive, adrenaline-fueled athletes are just, colliding at full speed.
Oh, yeah. Total chaos.
Exactly. The crowd is screaming, the stakes are incredibly high, and the physical intensity is right on the edge of, well, going completely out of control.
Right.
But now take a breath and picture a quiet, unassuming school office. You've got a counselor sitting across from a vulnerable teenager who is in the middle of a profound emotional crisis.
It is, I mean, it is the ultimate juxtaposition, really.
Right. Okay, let's unpack this, because you have to wonder, what could the person managing that muddy, violent chaos on the pitch possibly teach the person sitting in that quiet, high-stakes room?
It sounds kind of crazy when you put it like that.
It does. But today's deep dive tackles exactly that question. We are exploring a fascinating document titled, What a DSL Can Learn From a Rugby Referee. And just for context for you listening, a DSL is a designated safeguarding lead. They're the person in an organization, often the school, whose entire job is to manage the safety, trauma, and well-being of vulnerable people. So our mission today is to unpack how the brutal, highly physical environment of a rugby match maps onto the emotionally charged world of crisis management.
Yeah, and it really does map on perfectly.
And ultimately, we want to figure out what you, the listener, can learn about projecting calm, consistent leadership in literally any high-pressure role.
It sounds completely counterintuitive at first glance. I mean, rugby and pastoral care?
Right, totally different worlds.
But when we look at the underlying behavioral psychology, it is actually a masterclass in de-escalation. My role here is to bridge the gap between those two worlds for us today.
Awesome.
We are going to examine the specific techniques of sports officiating and uncover why they offer such a practical, rigorous blueprint for holding firm boundaries without, escalating conflict.
Because escalation is always the risk. Right.
Exactly. Because the truth is, whether you are managing a volatile rugby scrum, or navigating a crisis in a corporate boardroom, or handling a delicate safeguarding disclosure, the mechanics of human escalation remain remarkably identical.
That is so interesting. Let's start with, I think, the most counterintuitive concept in the source material, which is this idea of invisible authority.
Yes.
The document argues that the absolute best referee on a pitch is the one you barely notice, which is weird to think about.
It is.
They are the central figure. They carry the ultimate responsibility for everyone's physical safety, but they actively refuse to become the focal point of the game. They guide the environment without dominating it.
Which completely upends our cultural assumptions about power, doesn't it?
Totally.
We tend to associate authority with volume, right? With status, or with a leader who simply takes up a massive amount of space in a room.
Yeah, the loudest person in the room is in charge.
Exactly. We expect the leader to be the loudest voice. But the rugby referee proves the exact opposite. True, enduring authority doesn't come from volume. It comes from predictability.
Predictability.
Yes, it is built incrementally through the strictly fair, objective application of rules. Think about a DSL or, any manager leading a team through a difficult quarter. Trust is established in that exact same granular way.
It makes sense logically, but let's look at this practically. Like, take a specific scenario. In a rugby match, player A commits a minor foul, and the referee gives them a quick verbal warning.
Okay.
5 minutes later, player B commits the exact same minor foul. If the referee suddenly decides to send player B off the pitch entirely, what happens?
Oh, chaos.
Right. The players immediately stop playing the game and start fighting the referee. The frustration just skyrockets because the baseline of fairness just vanished.
Precisely. And that exact same mechanism applies to a school hallway or a corporate office. Oh, absolutely. Imagine a student drops a minor profanity in frustration because they, dropped their books. Teacher might calmly tell them to watch their language.
Seems reasonable.
But if another student does the exact same thing 10 minutes later, and a different staff member screams at them and issues a massive detention, trust in the entire disciplinary system begins to fracture.
Oh, wow. Yeah, the inconsistency is the issue there.
Exactly. You manage the environment, but you cannot become emotionally entangled in it. A seasoned referee observes a bad tackle, they intervene, but they never take the bad tackle personally.
Right. They don't get offended by it.
Exactly. For a safeguarding professional, you have to stay relationally connected to the person in distress, but you absolutely must maintain total professional objectivity.
Okay, I understand the theory, but I have to push back here a little bit.
Sure, go ahead.
We are talking about human beings, not athletes playing a game. A DSL is often dealing with children who are crying, who are angry, who are experiencing genuine trauma.
Yeah.
It's almost like being a thermostat rather than a thermometer, right?
Right.
You have to set the climate without just reacting to the temperature in the room. But how does a leader project warmth while maintaining that mechanical referee distance?
That's a really tough balance.
Because, I mean, I think we've all made the mistake of trying to match someone's emotional volume in a crisis, thinking it shows we care. But if a child is crying and you remain perfectly objectively detached, doesn't that read as callousness?
Yeah, is the natural fear, yeah. But what's fascinating here is that we have to separate empathy from emotional mirroring. We often confuse emotional over-involvement with actually caring.
Oh, interesting distinction.
Let's look at the psychological mechanism at play here. When a person, whether that's a child in a school or an employee in a boardroom, is in a state of high distress, their amygdala is basically hijacking their nervous system.
Right, the fight or flight response.
Exactly, they're in fight or flight. So if you, as the leader, match their emotional volume, if you panic or get visibly upset or show profound anxiety, you are signaling to their nervous system that there is, in fact, a very good reason to panic.
Oh, wow. So you're actually validating their panic?
Yes, your emotional overinvolvement actively clouds your judgment, and worse, it actively escalates their physiological distress.
So it's less about being a cold, unfeeling robot and more about being like a shock absorber in a car.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, you take the violent kinetic impact of the crisis, the screaming, the tears, but you don't pass that kinetic energy into the cabin. You compress, you absorb the blow, and you keep the chassis level.
That is a perfect mechanical analogy. Remaining calm and avoiding those reactive knee-jerk responses is what actually creates genuine safety for the vulnerable person.
Right.
They do not need you to panic with them. They need you to be the solid ground beneath their feet. It is presence without enmeshment.
Okay, so assuming you've managed to become that shock absorber, how do you actually apply that authority when the chaos is unfolding in real time?
Right, the actual execution.
So what does this all mean for the whistle itself? If consistency is the ultimate goal, does that mean a leader has to intervene every single time a minor rule is broken?
Well, no.
Because in rugby, if you blow the whistle for every single minor microscopic infraction, you ruin the game. I mean, it becomes totally unplayable.
This is where we get into the concept of proportionality and the advantage rule.
The advantage rule.
Yeah, so in rugby, if a foul occurs, but stopping the play would actually penalize the team that was wronged, like maybe they still have the ball and a clear path forward, the referee will signal advantage and just let the play continue.
Oh, so they acknowledge it but don't stop everything.
Right. They see the infraction, but they allow the momentum to proceed.
Right.
Because over-officiating disrupts the flow. Translating this to leadership, for you listening, good judgment requires profound proportionality. You have to constantly differentiate between what is merely a conflict and what is actual harm.
Right. Distinguishing between a mistake and a risk.
Yes, exactly.
Like if two employees are having a really heated, frustrating debate about a project, but they're actively solving the problem, a manager shouldn't necessarily storm in and shut it down just to police their tone.
No, you let them work it out.
Or in a school setting, differentiating between a child exhibiting annoying, boundary-testing developmental behavior versus a true safeguarding concern.
Exactly. You allow the developmental friction to happen. However, this relies on a critical pivot point, which is that safety always, unconditionally, overrides flow.
Unconditionally, yes.
When a genuine threshold of danger is crossed, play stops immediately. There is no debate. There is no waiting for a better moment.
The whistle blows.
Instantly. If a safeguarding threshold is met, like a disclosure of abuse or an immediate physical threat, protecting safety matters exponentially more than maintaining the momentum of the school day or preserving anyone's comfort.
But this is where it sounds incredibly difficult for you, the listener, to balance in reality.
It is really hard.
How do you avoid causing absolute whiplash for the people you are leading? Because on one hand, you are supposed to have this seasoned, nuanced judgment where you let play continue to allow for growth.
Right.
On the other hand, you have to hold an immovable, hard line and stock everything the second a threshold is crossed.
Yeah.
How do you execute that without looking just erratic and unpredictable?
Well, you avoid looking erratic by communicating the why behind your thresholds long before a crisis ever happens.
Oh, so setting the stage early.
Exactly. Because the source text gives a stark warning here. The whistle loses its authority if it is used poorly. Think about it. If a referee blows the whistle frantically for minor, irrelevant things, what do the players do?
They probably just stop listening.
They become desensitized. They literally stop respecting the sound of it. And in a corporate environment or a pastoral setting, overreaction kills your credibility.
Wow. Yeah.
If people know you will blow every minor issue out of proportion, they simply stop coming to you with problems.
And conversely, underreaction kills safety.
Exactly. The way you balance the two without causing that whiplash is by grounding your interventions in predictable, well-communicated standards. When you do blow the whistle, everyone in the room should already understand exactly why it was blown. Your response must feel proportionate to the event.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because that brings us to the actual execution of that response. How you vocalize the decision so people actually comply.
Yes, the communication piece.
We've all seen amateur referees, or frankly amateur managers, screaming and waving their arms to try and get control of a situation.
We certainly have.
But elite referees don't do that. The document notes that elite referees speak clearly, they stay incredibly calm, and they explain their decisions briefly and confidently.
And there is a deep physiological reason why this works.
Really. It's not just a style choice.
Not at all. When you lower your vocal register and speak more slowly, you are actively signaling safety. You are engaging the vagus nerve and activating the parasympathetic nervous system.
Wow.
And not just in yourself, but in the people listening to you. A calm, steady voice literally lowers the heart rate of a chaotic room.
That's amazing.
You aren't dominating them into submission. You are stabilizing the environment so their higher cognitive functions can actually come back online.
But as effective as this physiology is, we do have to look at the limits of the metaphor.
Yes, we do.
Because the source material refers to this section as the honest bit. We have to acknowledge where mapping a sports game onto human trauma hits a brick wall. Because safeguarding and human leadership in general is emphatically not a game.
No, it is not. The students or the employees you are supporting, they are not opponents on a field trying to outscore each other. And the outcomes are vastly more consequential than a tally on a scoreboard.
Right. The stakes are real life.
Exactly. A referee is enforcing arbitrary game rules in a highly competitive environment through purely neutral officiating.
Purely neutral.
Yes. A DSL, however, is protecting human well-being in an educational environment through relational leadership. They are providing deeply human-centered support. You aren't managing a match, you are managing lives.
Which highlights the difference between finite and infinite games.
Yes.
Sports are finite. They have a time limit, clear rules, and a definitive winner and loser at the final whistle. But safeguarding, culture building, leadership, these are infinite games.
Right. There is no final whistle.
Exactly. You aren't trying to win a Tuesday afternoon. You are trying to maintain a healthy ecosystem so that everyone can return and thrive on Wednesday morning.
Beautifully put.
So how does a leader transition from the strict neutral officiating we've been praising into that relational, human-centered leadership without, completely abandoning the consistency?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, it requires reframing what a boundary actually is.
Okay, how so?
We often have this false dichotomy in our heads. We believe we must either be a cold, rule-enforcing authoritarian or a totally boundaryless, overly emotional caretaker.
Right, like there's no middle ground.
But relational leadership doesn't mean abandoning the rules. In fact, your neutral, consistent application of the boundaries is exactly what creates the safe space for your human-centered support to actually work.
Oh, wow. That reframes the entire concept.
Yeah.
So the boundary isn't a wall designed to keep people out. It's a container that allows the relationship to happen safely within it.
Precisely. Vulnerable people, whether that's a traumatized teenager or an employee facing a severe personal crisis, can only truly engage with you when they feel secure.
And the boundaries provide that security.
Yes. They feel secure because they know exactly where the boundary lines are. They know you won't arbitrarily move the goalposts based on your mood. The absolute consistency of your whistle is the bedrock that allows deep relational trust to form.
That makes total sense. And zooming out from those individual one-on-one interactions, we start to see how a single leader's whistle doesn't just affect one person. It dictates the culture of the entire organization.
It absolutely does.
This is the macro level, the system-level leadership. The source poses an incredibly pointed question here, and I want to put it directly to you, the listener, to audit your own workplace right now.
Yeah, this is a great exercise.
Think about your current team, your office, or your school's pastoral system. Are decisions in your culture experienced as consistent and fair, or are they unpredictable and entirely personality-driven?
Which is so common.
Right, because we have all worked in environments where the answer to a crisis depends completely on which manager happens to be on duty that afternoon.
And working in that kind of environment is neurologically exhausting.
Oh, totally. You're always on edge.
When decisions are inconsistent and personality-driven, it weakens trust in the entire organizational framework. Think about it. If an employee knows that manager A will ignore a safety violation, but manager B will fire them for it.
You don't have a culture of safety.
Exactly. You have a culture of rolling the dice. You have a culture of anxiety.
So how do we fix that? How do we build a system that actually works across an entire organization so it doesn't rely on just one superstar leader?
Building a resilient system requires moving away from individual heroism and towards structural clarity.
Structural clarity.
Yes, you need robust foundations, which means the expectations and boundaries aren't just written in a handbook somewhere. They are lived, spoken, and predictable every single day.
Okay.
You also have to build pathways that empower your staff. If a junior team member faces a crisis, they shouldn't have to guess what the CEO would want them to do.
Right, they shouldn't have to mind read.
Exactly. They should feel confident in making a decision because the safety expectations are universally understood. And finally, it requires leaders who back up those decisions with calm, credible authority.
Just like the referee.
Yes. As the rugby pitch shows us, true authority in a system is earned continuously through fairness. It is never simply demanded by a title on a door.
It really strips away all the posturing, doesn't it? It takes the traditional cinematic idea of a leader, the person shouting orders, dominating the room, demanding compliance, and reveals it as incredibly fragile.
Very fragile.
So to bring our mission today full circle, this deep dive into the rugby referee teaches us that true leadership in a crisis is not about over-controlling the environment, but it's also not about passive observation.
Right.
It is about maintaining a consistent, grounded presence as a shock absorber. It's the deep understanding that safety overrides convenience and that your credibility is forged entirely through predictable, objective fairness.
The source document leaves the reader with a brilliant reflective question for their own practice. It asks the DSL, and by extension, anyone in a leadership role, in my daily practice, am I responding consistently enough that my people trust the whistle when it matters most?
It forces you to really look at your own track record.
It really does. But this raises an important question and unmentioned consequence to all of this that I want to leave you to mull over.
Okay, what is it?
If a leader's authority is truly built on the predictable, consistent use of their whistle, what happens to the organizational culture when that specific leader is absent?
Oh, wow.
If you take a week off, does your culture's safety sustain itself because the system itself is trusted? Or does the behavior immediately degrade into chaos because the players only follow the rules when the referee is physically standing on the pitch?
Wow. That is the ultimate stress test for any organization.
Yeah.
You might not have an X-ray machine to show you the hidden fractures in your workplace culture, but if you step away, you'll see the truth immediately.
You certainly will.
If the whole thing falls apart the second you leave the room, you haven't built a safe system. You just built an exhausting game of compliance. The muddy waters clear up really fast when you see what kind of game everyone plays when the referee's back is turned.